Welcome to Monday, December 11th, 2023. Your Day Weather Podcast is being brought to you by Hot Springs County Travel and Tourism, reminding you that as temperatures drop and snow is on the horizon at Thermopolis, you can always find yourself in hot water. Well, we're going to have a small storm system move through the region here over the next 48 hours. That will bring a little bit of winter. It's a system that's a lot like what came through on Thanksgiving, but on a much, much smaller scale. It's going to be drifting in from the Pacific Northwest and Western Canada, and this will bring light snows to parts of Wyoming and surrounding states, mainly the I-80 corridor in particularly, and some areas of the high country. It's not going to be a major system, but if you are traveling across portions of Wyoming, the high country of Colorado, northern Utah, just enough snow, just enough to grease up roads and highways a bit later today, tonight, into early Tuesday. Then the same system is going to go all the way down into the desert southwest, into the southern plains, and it's going to end up becoming a pretty significant snow and rain event for southern and southeast Colorado, a good chunk of New Mexico, parts of Kansas, Texas, and Oklahoma. It's what I would say is our first real El Nino-like situation so far this winter, and we'll discuss that here in a moment. And then after all of this moves through, we actually have a pretty quiet stretch of weather. There may not be much going on for better than a week once the system moves on out. Then it looks like the weather starts to get busy again right around, well, you guessed it, probably just before Christmas time is when the next stormy period is likely to return. Speaking of stormy periods, as these systems have been moved through, a great photo of some snow squall activity that came through Friday afternoon across portions of Colorado. This is near Leadville, just a beautiful shot of a snow squall moving across the basins and valleys there in southwest Colorado coming off the mountains. Strong winds over the weekend. A lot of you experienced those. So we got also great lenticular clouds over the Absarokas there in northwestern Wyoming this weekend as well. The satellite imagery this morning doesn't really look like a lot, but right here you can see an area of cloudiness, a little swirl up here in north central areas of Canada. This is an area of low pressure that is sliding southeastward just like this. And as it does so, that's going to bring Pacific moisture. You can see there's a little bit of a pipeline coming in with this wave. This blue here represents some cold air across the northern plains. There is going to be a little surge of colder air at the same time this Pacific moisture slides southeast into the region. We call that overrunning. It's a small version of what came in over Thanksgiving, but it's not as cold and it's not as moist, and the storm isn't as strong. Nonetheless, there it is on the 500 millibar chart. It really doesn't look like much, but as you can see, it does become a bit better organized and then moves into northeast Nevada there by noon tomorrow. So this is by noon today. This is by noon tomorrow. So the Pacific moisture comes over on top of the colder air that gets pushed up along the divide. The end result is this: nothing really heavy, but we do have that collision of air masses and Pacific moisture coming on in. So this is what we talked about along the Interstate 80 corridor, the mountains of northern Colorado, back into Utah, Idaho, Oregon here, the Pacific Northwest. There's going to be a little bit of winter weather with it. And here's what the snowfall will look like. Most of this comes later today, overnight tonight, and into early Tuesday. So it's really nothing remarkable. But if you're traveling, just keep in mind you're going to run into a little bit of winter weather in those areas. Then by Thursday, that same low gets cut off from the main jet stream. So as it gets cut off, it's going to very slowly just kind of meander across the southwestern United States by the end of the week. But the situation is that the counterclockwise rotation around this low and the fact that it's cut off from the main jet stream means it's just going to kind of spin around very slowly. What that does is the counterclockwise rotation draws Gulf of Mexico moisture up and into and ahead of the low and around it. So what ends up happening, okay, so this is Thursday, this is Friday, moves very slowly into the Texas Panhandle. It's still, for the most part, disconnected from the main jet stream up here. So it's going to have the ability to draw good moisture into the southern plains and southern Rockies. Look at that. This is an impressive amount of rain over central and eastern Texas. Look at New Mexico here and southeast Colorado, southwest Kansas, a good part of central and western Oklahoma. And on the back northerly side of this, there's going to be snow. So traveling Interstate 40 here later in the week, possibly sections of Interstate 70 as well in eastern Colorado and western areas of Kansas, and roads and highways across New Mexico and West Texas. Well, look at that. This could be a significant snow event. Now, we talked earlier about this may be the first El Nino-like storm of the winter season. I think it really is. It's an indication of a more southerly route that starts to develop as you get into the more mature parts of winter. And this is what you would expect in an El Nino winter in the West. You do start to see these storms taking more tracks to the south. And I think this is something that will be a theme as we go into December, later half of December, into January and February. Not every storm will take these southerly routes, but this could be a significant snow event right here later in the week. Now notice this big, large, white area of nothing, nada, going on later this week and into the weekend across the rest of the West. So there's going to be some winter down there and then significant rains in the warmer sector right here. So if you're going to be traveling into those areas, you really need to keep an eye on it. This could really impact southern Colorado's mountains and mountain passes, the plains, as well as north central and northern areas of New Mexico. And this is what you would have. This is a very idealized El Nino jet stream pattern. Again, it's idealized, but what you do tend to see is a southerly jet start to develop due to those warmer waters contrasting with the cooler waters up north. You get a little bit of a temperature gradient that makes a southerly branch of the jet stream going. Now, so far this winter, the northerly branch has been dominant. And that northerly branch is still there. But in an El Nino winter, you will occasionally see the southern jet stream kick into gear. So that's exactly what's transpiring here this week with this pattern. Now, going out further, this is a week from this coming Tuesday, a week from tomorrow. We've got this big low that's going to sit off the California coast, but generally a westerly Pacific-dominated flow here. And here's that same low. It's going to go right across the southern parts of the U.S., making the whole South very, very wet. Well, basically, not much else is going to go on for a bit. Now, eventually, this low is going to cut loose and start to head inland later in the forecast period. And I think this is where California is probably going to start to see some wetter weather come in mid to late next week. And eventually that gets into the Rockies. And the timing is such that it's probably going to be around the weekend just before Christmas. And that's kind of what we're looking at right now. So there's going to be a bit of a gap where we could go a week or so with really very quiet weather in the West. Have yourself a good Monday. We will see you tomorrow.